What does a guy have to do to get a little bit of respect? Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for a video which will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one being the short story discussion playlist. This is, I believe, the 67th entry in that playlist, but also the latest in a short story by short story read along of the Finca Vigia edition of Ernest Hemingway's collected short stories. Every short story that Ernest Hemingway wrote, we will be making our way through in this series. This video will have three sections: a So What Happened recap of the short story, a literary criticism portion, and a writer's corner. Now, let's get started. What happens in this short story? Peduzzi has done a little work and got a little drunk. It seems that through his interactions with the man and his wife, maybe Peduzzi is looking to get down tonight. And he gets a little bit more liquor, by the way, on credit because he says he has work coming. It turns out that work is taking the aforementioned couple, a pair of foreigners, fishing. And fishing is illegal, at least in the season that they find themselves. Never the matter, the young gentleman, quote unquote young gentleman, shows up with his wife, who is upset and keeps lagging behind until Peduzzi shouts at her to keep up. She does, then falls behind. Peduzzi talks to the young gentleman and convinces him to buy a little bit more booze. And while Peduzzi is making the purchase, the young couple are in an argument, and he says that he's sorry for the fight that they had, and both of them basically keep saying the same thing to each other, but they are not that she's not apologizing, but they're recapping the events that happened, and they both keep saying roughly the same thing, and they're arguing about it anyway, which I am left to assume that's just what it's like to be married. They were then Peduzzi gets the alcohol, and they get back to it. And Peduzzi says they're probably about a half an hour out from where they need to be. So the young gentleman convinces the wife, just go back. Just go home. Just go back to our living quarters. So she does. Then Peduzzi gets upset when he says they're basically at the spot. This is when the young gentleman reminds him that he had just said they're about a half an hour away from where they need to be. Peduzzi says it's good here, it's good there, let's just fish here. Do you have the weights? The young gentleman says he does not, and Peduzzi says you were supposed to have the weights for fishing. The young gentleman says let's just do it tomorrow, so Peduzzi asks for $5. Get me over the hump, get me to tomorrow. But he settles for $4, and then Peduzzi says let's meet at 7 a.m. sharp. All right. And the young gentleman says he's probably not coming back, while he knows himself he is not coming back. He's not going to be there to go fishing. And it seems that Peduzzi has incompetented his way out of more work. So where's he going to get the work, or the work for, the money for the liquor that he bought on credit? Now, the first note that I have here in the literary criticism portion of this video is the note, the text as we have it. There is a lot of talk around this short story that the young couple, the foreigners, they're actually Americans. And maybe I missed it, but I don't really have any type of evidence in the text to back that up. Now, obviously, if the couple is American expatriates, it makes sense that they're speaking English. But the spoken English might just be for the ease of storytelling, as this is meant for an American audience, written by an American author. There is a little bit of switching back and forth between languages. I think, if nothing else, probably at least the woman is actually German. Otherwise, the spoken German doesn't make any sense between the couple if they are Americans visiting Italy. The second note that I have here is not a new problem. Peduzzi is a general laborer and a drunk, right? He's also, at least by his own admissions here, a veteran. So we if we're putting this in context with today's world, what do you get out of a short story? Why read a short story that has nothing to do with your world? Well, maybe a little bit of context that we can bring in from our world to the understanding of this short story is that the problem with veterans not being able to find work and ending up drunk is not new. So I work retail, I work overnights, and my first night as the overnight guy, I have to lock the bathrooms when I come in. We don't let people on the overnights use the bathrooms. The women's room was already locked. Didn't think much of it. Sometimes they lock the door if they're using the restroom. The women that work on the evening shift will lock the door if they're using the restroom before they go. Okay, fine. Well, it started to weigh on me a little bit as my shift went on, and I decided I probably better check that restroom. Unlocked the door, opened it up, and swung the door right into a man's rib cage who was laying face down on the floor. Kind of freaked out, called the police, and it turned, because I didn't know if he was dead, right? That could be a dead guy. I'm not just walking in there by myself and trying to wake a man up. I've done a lot of shady things, but I'm not doing that. Not putting my hands on somebody. And when the police get there, I say, hey, not sure this guy's alive. And the officer looked at me and said, Adrian, this is my first night on the job. If you hand me my first dead body, I'm going to be a little bit upset with you. So we go back there, open the door. There was a fifth of American honey. A fifth of American honey completely empty. I don't know if you have any experience with American honey. You could use it on your pancakes. It's that thick. And there was a bottle of vitamin C gummies, 140 gummies, and there was about 20 gummies left. It was the middle of winter, and I suppose that this fella had decided, I have to stay warm. I feel like I'm getting sick. I'm going to take vitamin C and some warm juice. And passed out in the bathroom. Turned out, not only was he a veteran, he was a mechanical engineer for the Army. Couldn't find a job when he got out and ended up homeless. So that's that's disheartening, right? That's awful. I just thought I would pass that along, as this is semi sort of connected to the story, at least to the veteran portion. Now, I don't have a whole lot of notes on this short story. You will notice that. Maybe I will have to come back to this short story at some point, but this was a last video in this series, Cat in the Rain. I talked a little bit in the Writer's Corner portion of the video about how, hey, this is a short story where the beginning is basically just a list. Ernest Hemingway sets up and gives us a list of things, and it worked. It worked for that short story. Here, I'm going to read you the opening paragraph to this short story. On the 4 lire Peduzzi had earned by spading the hotel garden, he got quite drunk. He saw the young gentleman coming down the path and spoke to him mysteriously. The young gentleman said he had not eaten but would be ready to go as soon as lunch was finished. 40 minutes or an hour. For me, I don't think that this opening paragraph works. First off, he spoke to him mysteriously. What does that even mean? What does mysteriously even mean in that context? I guess I can kind of understand that he's sneaking up and hiding his face and etc. I don't really get that visual. I think that it would do us much more good here. And obviously, I'm not saying Ernest Hemingway should have written this short story differently. This has obviously worked for Ernest Hemingway. We're not Ernest Hemingway. It would be more profitable for the audience, in my opinion, to have the dialogue that happens between Peduzzi and, quote-unquote, the young gentleman. If it is more profitable to have that dialogue between those two characters, we get to flesh out who they are. Who is the young gentleman? And then what we would be able to establish later in the short story as the young gentleman's speech patterns change would be that he's no longer attempting to get Peduzzi to show him where to fish, even though he knows it's illegal. He is being overcome by irritation. As it stands, the young gentleman is really sort of stable through the entire short story. It would be, in my opinion, there's not a lot of character arc here, and there doesn't have to be, but it's something interesting for your reader to have along the way. If we see the young gentleman progressively getting more irritated, but Peduzzi being the one who is the steady force, then we understand more fully that this is just another occurrence in Peduzzi's life. Sure, he has built up to get his other liquor that I've got work coming. But when it falls through, Peduzzi is left in the same spot that he was when we found him. The young gentleman is increasingly irritated and now has relationship problems, and the young woman is sort of steady state, but at the end is ultimately dismissed from the group. So if you spent any time in a relationship, you understand how well that's going to go later. So I think that if we get a little bit of dialogue here at the beginning, as opposed to just a motioning towards the fact that these people had had a mysterious conversation, we would have a more full arc for at least one character, and it would be profitable to your readers. That is all I have for this short story out of season. The next video in this series for Ernest Hemingway will be Cross Country Snow. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about. There's poetry every Monday, and I'm obviously going through Ernest Hemingway short stories. We just finished up Dubliners by James Joyce, so consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more literature in the future, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.